off to the principal's office I go. Yo, you think this is bad? Wait till I get my report card.
Hi there and welcome to episode 10 of the vodcast series, The Principal's Office, which aims to give viewers a greater insight into fantastic educational practice in schools, certainly much more than a 9 to 3 job. I'm your host, Matt Lewis, and today I'm very fortunate to be joined by the principal of Miranda Public School, Michael Duffy, on the grounds here at Miranda Public School, a little bit different to where we normally do it. He's also the former president of the Deputy Principals Association, so he knows a lot about professional learning and stuff like that. So he's also a former colleague of mine. We've worked together for about 15 years all up, wasn't it? So it's certainly a pleasure to be working with Michael for all that time. So welcome, Michael, and thanks for joining us today on the Principal's Office. To get us started today, can you tell us a bit of a funny story? Because you've been involved in education for 30 years or thereabouts, or a little bit more. Surely you've got a great funny story to tell us.
You will find over time that you get lots of funny stories, but you can't tell all of them for privacy reasons. But what I can tell you about that is fairly safe is if you're teaching year 5 and 6, be very careful about what you wear because you will get fashion advice. So one particular day I bought a new jacket, a new shirt. I thought I looked really good. I came into school and my little year 6 girl, I won't say her name, but she said to me, "Mr. Duffy, never ever wear that again."
Wow.
And I was completely crushed.
Cutting stuff. Now that young girl didn't turn out to be a teacher.
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, because we do know that there's a teacher that you sort of taught around the way at another school, but ended up being a teacher at our school.
Yeah, no.
But anyway, all right. Okay, well that's crushing, isn't it? Jeez, I don't know what I'd do in that situation, but. Yeah, you obviously handled it well. Let's talk about engaging, planning and implementing effective professional learning. That's standard 6 for our Australian professional standards for those pre-service teachers out there. Statistics show that the more targeted you are with professional learning for your staff, to the point of being absolutely excited about their learning, they can transfer that into wonderful student results. Okay, how important is it to be well planned as a leader, targeting what students need and tailoring professional learning for our staff to suit that end?
It's absolutely vital. It is the ethos of what we do. If we're going to make a difference for our students, we need to believe that every one of our students can learn. And what makes that interesting for us is every student is different in one way or another. As you would have heard a few weeks ago in a previous one of these vodcasts, you might have a group of children with similar needs, but then when you start working with each of those children, you find each of them has a different need. And as teachers, our job is to make our students have those conditions set up for learning, and we don't always have those answers, so we have to have professional learning to be able to do that. Without doing that, you aren't going to get anywhere. And as teachers, we have to be reflective. We have to be open to the fact that we're not always going to have the right answers, that things we do aren't going to work, and we have to realise that in time, new processes, new procedures, new ideas, innovations come about, and we have to change what we do because the children's needs are always changing and our needs are always changing too. So I guess it's the same as with the teaching learning cycle with us as teachers in our classrooms. The same thing applies at the whole school level too, where we're always looking at being able to plan what we need to do, look at how we select what it is we're going to teach and what skills we need to know, what knowledge we need to know, and then look at what behaviours we have to change. And then from there, going back to assessing that and saying, did this work? What evidence do I have that it worked? If it isn't working, try something else. Look at other forms of professional learning, and the cycle goes round and round.
Certainly. And it's really important, I think, that we do become that reflective leader in the classroom to say, all right, what was my performance like? And be honest with that. We're far past that registration stage where we date and sign whatever's in our program. I think really great teachers get a lot better at their practice when they're totally reflective. And it is, I suppose, from a leader's point of view, whether we're principal or deputy principal in the school, it's about recognising what needs to change and having a look at a lot of data as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the data we have, there's so much around. Sometimes it's about working out what is the best data to choose. But you've got, some people talk about, NAPLAN. Well, NAPLAN's fine. It's a nice piece of external data to triangulate against. But the data you need to be looking at is what you have in front of you. The students who walk into your classroom. Are they wanting to come into your classroom? Are they wanting to be part of your mathematics lessons? Are they difficult to engage? And then looking at the students' results, the students' work, do they understand what we're doing? Can we move on to something else? What is it about their practice that you as a teacher can change to try and engage those children more? So we've got all of that data as well, and then looking at a whole stage data as well.
Yeah.
So it's very important we do that.
All right, so we talked a little bit about data, but there's many other things that go into this next question. But what informs this decision making as far as deciding what professional learning is needed in the school and what conversations are had or need to be had to get on that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're talking about the teacher learning cycle, again, it's around the whole school as well. So you look at your school data to make your school plan. And your school plan is those key directions that you need to be able to focus on where you need to go as a school. And that also informs your professional learning. So your professional learning needs to be part of what you're doing in the classroom. So if my professional learning is successful, I'm going to see a difference in my teachers' behaviours, and I'm also going to see a difference in the students' results eventually because of that work that they've put in. If we're not seeing that change happen, then we need to go back and think again. So our school plan is very important and needs to be important to each particular school. So it'll look different from one school to the next. We also have to be careful that we've got a narrow and deep focus, because even though the Department of Education has said to us have that focus, in schools we also have a lot of other agendas that are coming through. And so we really need to have a clear focus on what it is that we need to do, what's most important for us to do, and be able to move through that way. So looking at our staff, talking with our staff about what are our biggest needs in the school, what are the problems, what are the issues, where can our kids improve the most, and looking at what is your priority area, and that's the area where you look for it. Also then conversations about who are the staff in the school who can help us lead this program in our school or lead this change, because we want all our change to be about improvement. So we need to make sure we're having those conversations, and they've got to be open and honest. We also look at research people such as Vivian Robinson. They talk about how we as leaders need to be welcoming and listening to the pushback that comes from other teachers, because they might have a very good reason for not leading the program the way that you've done. And just as teachers have to be reflective in the classroom, leaders have to be reflective too about how they're leading programs too. Do they need to change that professional learning so that those staff members can move forward? Sometimes it's a very simple solution, sometimes it's much more complicated. But it's about listening, having those good conversations with each other. And like you said before, reflective teachers are the most successful, because when there's a problem, they don't blame the students. They say, okay, what else can I do to change this? And we've got to be open to feedback. And sometimes we find the feedback cutting. But if you go back and look at how the feedback's given, the reason it's given is because we want to improve. And if you keep that focus, you can really help. Yeah,
and it's we've said in previous Principal's Office episodes that that criticism or constructive criticism, it's not personal. It's just about the practice, and it's all designed to make you a better teacher. I'm going to grab two hooks there. The first one you said was eventually, because staff need time, don't they, to learn these processes, adopt them as their practice. And it is going to take a little bit of time, and that's why I suppose our school plans are over 4 years now, because we're talking about the marathon. aren't we? We're not going to sprint, a 100-metre sprint, and have it all ready to go just in an instant. It's going to take time. So no one's going to ever expect you to know exactly all of it right away. Okay, that's number one. Number two, you said narrow and deep. I think, a lot of schools can be unsuccessful if they try and plan to learn too much. You know what I mean? And the philosophy is, and I'm sure you've got the same philosophy here at Miranda Public School, is that when we learn something, well, that's the thing we're learning for this year. There's something else that we'll have that we're probably learning the previous year that we're consolidating this year. All right, and I think that model is whatever we're learning this year, we'll go forward with next year, and we'll consolidate that and probably bring on something else that's new.
That's right, and building on what we've done too. So, for example, at Miranda Public School, when we looked at all of our information last year, we found that writing was the area that we really wanted to improve in. We also wanted to look at the practices from what works best, and we thought that the best way for us to improve those would be start with learning intentions and success criteria. So we thought we would match those together with our writing and use that as a way to really make our writing much more explicit for our teaching. And our teachers have gotten together, and our target intervention, I guess, would be that we've got our executive all going off together to do more professional learning on how to be leaders, to lead the learning with their stage teams, with writing, and then using expertise of them as expert teachers with how to teach writing. But we're also open to looking at getting other people into the literacy and numeracy team to come and help us as well with the areas where we need to improve. Yeah. So it's about making sure that you're looking all the way at what's our whole school focus, what's our team focus, and then what's our individual focus as well. Mm-hmm. And I guess the other part of it too is making sure that you are budgeting time, because time is our greatest resource, probably after staff. But if we aren't planning our time and making that really planned, we're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities. And sometimes that means actually cutting out programs or delaying things to move it through. So one thing I did this year, Matt, is I actually cut out all of the activities we had set out for this year on our school plan, and then with the executive staff, we literally moved them around so we could plan it much better, so that we could actually see that we could actually achieve something that was actually narrow and deep and not just surface level learning.
Mm-hmm. And the opportunity to breathe in between, I suppose. That's why you look at moving things around in your calendar to do that sort of thing. And I suppose what we call that is putting supports in place to be successful. So, well done, mate. That's a fantastic move by doing that with your executive to ease the burden on your staff. All right. So we've looked a lot into what leaders will do to help their staff and think forward through a school plan. But what about PDPs, all right, performance development plans for teachers and whatnot. So let's have a focus there. What would a fantastic school PDP program look like for all of its teachers? And I suppose, what does that look like, when you're developing your first one as a teacher as well?
I think the first thing you got to start off with is going back to the purpose of why you were there in the school. You're there to make a difference, and the biggest difference is for the students in your class. But you also, to do that, you need to make a difference with yourself, and you've got to really have that understanding on board. You also have to have the understanding on board that you're part of a bigger system. You're not just a classroom teacher, you're a school teacher. You're also a school leader. When you walk into your first classroom, you become a leader. You're a leader of people, and the people aren't just the people in your class, they're also the other teachers around you, the other students in the other classes, the team that you work with, and all the other little teams that you've got in your school as well. We're all one big unit that operates together. So your PDP goals need to, number one, reflect what your whole school focus is, because you're part of that. For our whole school to be successful, we need you as the teacher, the greatest effect, to be imparting that in your classroom, which means you've got to be taking on professional learning to improve your practice there. Mm-hmm. You also need to have goals with the teams that you're working with as well, because, for example, we're doing writing this year. Kindergarten children are learning to recognise print, learning to recognise simple words and construct simple sentences. Whereas our stage 3 students, we want them focused on how they can really improve their language and the skills that they've got with their language as well. So obviously setting up things such as learning intention success criteria will be different and much more complex in the older grades. But setting up the different sorts of resources and the knowledge that you have about the pedagogies of K-2 learning, early stage 1 learning, is different again to the students in stage 2 and stage 3. So those PDP goals need to be differentiated. And then I guess there's individual goals too. There's the goals and dreams that you as a teacher are pursuing, such as your own career path, other interests that you have that you want to develop in the school, your passions and things like that too. And you've got to be able to articulate those. And the PDP is a wonderful process to do that. So it's not something for you to be embarrassed about and keep hidden to yourself, because your goals hopefully will be part of the school goals. We only have a limited budget with professional learning as well.
Yes, we do. Yes,
so,
we do.
As schools as well, we need to make sure though that what you are telling us you want to do with your professional learning fits in with what we are doing as a whole school, but also fits in with what you've got in your PDP plan as well.
Yeah, and I suppose, in the restrictions around that budget, we often say to our teachers that you want to go onto this professional learning workshop, whatever, is that in your PDP? And if it is, we're bound to actually send people along to those sorts of things. And when you do go along to a workshop like that, then it is incumbent upon you to come back and present to either your team or the staff to make sure that that learning goes further, type of thing. Because, as I say, we've got restricted budgets there. But the goals, having a school goal, a team goal, you can have up to 5 goals. So, personally, you can have 3 goals that you need to start working on your career and what you need to do there. So
absolutely.
Yeah, excellent.
And as a leader, your goals are much more aligned to what your school plan looks like, because that's basically what you're measuring your success on. Also, with your PDP, think about planning time for the actual activities that you've got planned for it. Because if you just write them down and then forget about it, you'll come to the end of the year and realise, I didn't get anything done. And the PDP process should be a process where you're continually going back to it, revisiting it, reflecting on the information you've picked up from your students to see if you've achieved your desired effect, looking at what you've actually achieved and done compared to what you want to do, and constantly refining the goals too. Sometimes we realise a goal just isn't practical for us, and we have to modify it. Sometimes we achieve that goal very quickly and are ready to move on to a different one. So that's important too with our goals.
Yeah, and I suppose we have that initial meeting at the start of the year, and then in the middle of the year we've got that self-review. And that's where we'd probably say, oh gee, I don't know if that goal actually represents what I needed it to represent, and that's when you can refine and whatnot. But a true process would mean that in the middle of the year you would do that self-review. You'd probably talk to your supervisor about that too, and there's an annual review at the end of the year. But for great teachers take this process very seriously, and so they look at those improvements, they look what they need to do, and then get better as a teacher, I suppose. So
there's just one more point I wanted to say about the PDPs as well, and that is this: it's okay to use your evidence from your students and what they're learning to measure against your PDP goals, because as teachers our job is about improving our performance. I'm not talking about department or political people measuring school performance against your work. I'm talking about you as a teacher looking at how you can improve yourself to improve your students' learning.
Absolutely, and with evidence-based schools these days, it's very important to make sure that evidence does follow, doesn't it? And that's a whole section within our PDP as what evidence are we going to collect. Fantastic, Michael. What have you learned along the way by targeting specific professional learning for your staff within the school setting? Now, I know you've been a principal for a little under a year now, but as a deputy principal, you were, responsible for this, and as the president of the Deputy Principal Association, you were responsible for that annual conference and making sure that great keynote speakers or activities that they were all doing. So, what have you learned along the way?
Number one, same as with the children in your class, professional learning looks different for every single teacher. Everyone has different needs, different ways of accomplishing things. And just like with your children, sometimes you get to know your students better. You realise there's a lot more you discover that they didn't know that you thought they knew. The other thing I think is don't be judgmental, because people know what they do know, but they don't know what they don't know. And I think our role as leaders is to support other teachers in developing their practice and being open to supporting them with their learning as well. Mm-hmm. So I think that's really important to know. Also, making sure that we are targeting people's different points of need, and that we're not expecting everyone to sit through the same thing, and recognising the expertise of the staff that we have working with us, because they can actually sometimes provide a better point of need for somebody than what a leader further up can. As a case in point, peer coaching type activities. The best learning is the learning that's done in your own classroom of your class. Yeah. And sometimes those with the teacher next door who can do something better than you. And you, in return, can actually help them by giving some reciprocal learning for them as well.
Yeah, like unique type of philosophy there, isn't it? Like we differentiate for kids in our class, but we should be differentiating the learning for our staff members too. Like if we're true to what we need to do, and some people are going to have that expertise, so we rely upon that, and hopefully that presentation adds to their skills as well. Yeah. So Michael, it's been fantastic listening to you today, and you know, it's we've often had educational discussions throughout the years and whatnot, so it's always a joy to have those with you. So fantastic. It's now time for the song challenge. All right, so I've chosen a song which I think that you would know very, very well. There's no one to play against at this particular one because we're off-site from the usual studio. But look, I'm sure you're going to get this. Now, if you get both, that would have been nice if it was after you got the answer. But if you get both minties, right? Both is the artist and the song title. Okay, so challenging, but I reckon you'll know it. Okay, are you ready for the song challenge?
I'll try.
Okay, so as soon as you've got some inkling, stop me, all right, and we'll go from there. Okay, ready?
Yep.
All right, stop, collaborate, and listen. Ice is back with a brand new invention.
Just vanilla ice.
Baby. Right, vanilla ice. Okay, so we've got one minty your way.
Right.
Vanilla ice. The name of the song.
Ice baby.
Ice, baby. I'll give it to you. Well done. Congratulations, mate. Or one particular night it was Ice Aruna, I think. But for those who don't know, Michael did actually perform that song in a very, very talented way, I would say. Fantastic. Mate, you got it. There you go. Well, I did go a little bit further than I was planning to go, but you know, that's all good. It's a bit hard when I just say the words and not sing them or rap them in this case. But well done. Michael, fantastic today, and great to grab your insights. Great to be in your school, and I really appreciated the tour earlier on that you took me on. But fantastic to have you on the Principal's Office. Hopefully we can get you back on at another stage. Like to thank everybody for joining us today and witnessing episode 10 of the Principal's Office. I'd like to thank Erwin Manalo, who is our executive producer. And of course, at the end of this presentation, you'll see our socials. Get on our socials, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, all of those. We've got our YouTube page as well. And for that YouTube page, you'll also see the arrows that point downwards to subscribe after this video. So please do that. Again, this has been episode 10 of the Principal's Office. I'm Matt Lewis. Thanks for joining us.
It's off to the Principal's Office you go. it's off to the principal's office I go.